Erdogan's Empire. Written by Soner Çağatay. Introduction. The rise of a new power in the Middle East.
For much of the 20th century, Turkey remained a relatively neutral player in global geopolitics, maintaining a balance between its historical Ottoman past and its modern secular state. However, under the leadership of Recep Tayyip Erdogan, Turkey has undergone a dramatic transformation, shifting from a secular republic to an assertive regional power with growing Islamic influences. In this book summary, we will explore how Erdogan has redefined Turkey's role in the Middle East and beyond, seeking to revive elements of the Ottoman legacy while consolidating political power domestically. This journey examines Turkey's foreign policy ambitions, its relationship with Western allies, its interventions in neighboring conflicts, and the growing tensions within Turkish society. With each move, Erdogan has positioned himself as a dominant figure in both Turkish politics and the broader Islamic world.
From secularism to political Islam. The transformation of Turkey.
Modern Turkey was founded in 1923 by Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, who dismantled the remnants of the Ottoman Empire and built a secular, Western-oriented state. His reforms drastically reduced the influence of Islam in governance, established a strong military presence in politics, and aligned Turkey with the West, particularly through its NATO membership. However, by the late 20th century, political Islam began to resurface as a counterforce to Atatürk's secularism. Erdogan, a former mayor of Istanbul and the leader of the Justice and Development Party, AKP, capitalized on the growing frustration with economic struggles and the secular elite's dominance. He presented himself as a leader of the people, advocating for economic development, stronger Islamic identity, and a vision of Turkey as a leading power in the Muslim world. As Erdogan consolidated power, he systematically eroded the secular foundations of the state, replacing them with policies that strengthened religious influence in public life. Schools, media, and the judiciary were reshaped to reflect a more Islamist and nationalist identity, and political opposition was increasingly silenced. This shift from secularism to political Islam became the foundation for Turkey's new ambitions, both within its borders and beyond.
Neo-Ottomanism. A return to regional influence.
One of the defining characteristics of Erdogan's rule has been Neo-Ottomanism, a strategy that seeks to reassert Turkey's influence in former Ottoman territories and reshape its role in global politics. Unlike Atatürk's vision of a Western-aligned, inward-focused Turkey, Erdogan has promoted a more assertive, interventionist approach to foreign policy. Turkey's engagement in the Syrian civil war, its military presence in Libya, its involvement and heavy presence in the Horn of Africa, and its backing of Qatar against the Saudi-led blockade are all signs of this revived expansionist ambition. These moves are not merely strategic geopolitical calculations. They are also symbolic efforts to reclaim Turkey's status as a dominant Muslim power, appealing to both nationalist and Islamist sentiments at home. However, this strategy has created new enemies and deepened existing tensions. The Gulf states, particularly Saudi Arabia and the UAE, view Turkey's increasing influence as a threat to their own regional dominance. Meanwhile, Turkey's military interventions in Syria and its confrontations with Kurdish forces have fueled international criticism. By reviving Ottoman-era symbolism, diplomacy, and military presence, Turkey under Erdogan has moved away from being a neutral player and toward a proactive, sometimes confrontational force in global affairs.
Strained relations with the West.
For decades, Turkey was seen as a bridge between the West and the Muslim world, maintaining close ties with the European Union, the United States, and NATO. However, under Erdogan's leadership, these relationships have become increasingly strained. One major point of contention has been Turkey's authoritarian turn. While initially praised for modernizing Turkey's economy and pushing democratic reforms, Erdogan has since cracked down on dissent, restricted press freedoms, and centralized power in the presidency. The failed 2016 coup attempt led to mass arrests of journalists, academics, and opposition figures, further deepening Western concerns about Turkey's commitment to democracy. Turkey's military interventions in Syria and its increasing defense ties with Russia, particularly its purchase of the S-400 missile system, have caused friction with NATO allies. The European Union's stalled negotiations on Turkey's membership, along with disagreements over refugee policies and human rights issues, have further pushed Turkey toward a more independent foreign policy stance. While Turkey remains a NATO member, its growing alignment with Russia and increasing hostility toward Western critics signal a shift away from its traditional Western alliances and toward a more self-reliant and regionally dominant posture.
The economic boom and the looming crisis.
Erdogan's rise was fueled in part by Turkey's rapid economic growth in the early 2000s, which improved infrastructure, raised living standards, and positioned Turkey as an emerging economic power. Foreign investment poured into Istanbul, Ankara, and other major cities, and ambitious construction projects transformed the country's landscape. However, this economic success was built on high levels of debt, an over-reliance on construction, and increasing government interference in financial markets. By the late 2010s, Turkey's economy began showing signs of strain, with inflation soaring, the Turkish lira collapsing, and investor confidence dwindling. Erdogan's economic policies, including his resistance to raising interest rates, have fueled concerns over long-term economic stability. At the same time, political crackdowns and rising authoritarianism have discouraged foreign investment, further weakening Turkey's financial standing. The economic crisis presents one of the biggest challenges to Erdogan's continued dominance. While he has maintained strong support from his base, growing financial struggles could erode his legitimacy and create openings for political opposition.
Turkey's military power and regional conflicts.
Turkey has dramatically expanded its military footprint, engaging in conflicts across multiple regions. From northern Syria to Libya and the eastern Mediterranean, Turkish forces have played a direct role in shaping regional dynamics. One of the most controversial moves has been Turkey's military campaign against Kurdish groups, whom Erdogan's government considers a security threat. The Kurdish issue has remained a long-standing point of conflict, with Turkey's operations in Syria and Iraq drawing international condemnation. Turkey's military expansion is not just about security. It is also about establishing itself as a dominant regional power capable of independent military action. The use of Turkish-made drones in conflicts such as Libya and Azerbaijan has demonstrated Turkey's growing defense capabilities and its willingness to use military force to protect its interests. These interventions have positioned Turkey as an assertive power, willing to challenge both traditional allies and rivals in pursuit of greater geopolitical influence.
The future of Erdogan's rule.
Despite growing economic and political challenges, Erdogan remains one of the most influential and polarizing leaders in modern Turkish history. His blend of nationalism, Islamism, and authoritarian control has allowed him to maintain a loyal support base, even as opposition voices grow louder. The next phase of Turkey's political evolution will depend on whether Erdogan can maintain his grip on power amid increasing economic pressure, rising opposition, and international isolation. If economic hardships worsen, domestic unrest could undermine his leadership and create a path for political change. However, if he continues to leverage Turkey's military strength, nationalist rhetoric, and strategic alliances, he may remain a defining force in the country's future for years to come. The ultimate question remains, Will Erdogan's vision for Turkey lead the country to long-term dominance, or will the growing cracks in his rule signal the beginning of his decline? The answer will shape not only Turkey's future, but also the broader geopolitical landscape of the Middle East and beyond.
Thanks for listening. Did you enjoy this book summary? Got ideas on how we can make it even better? Drop us a quick note. We're always listening and